17. I see everybody. Hi, Anya. Hi, Katya. Hi, everybody. Coffee, Hardiani, Ariana, and Decca, and Nadia, and everybody. It's so good to have you here. Woo! So now, while we also try to welcome other people who might have technical difficulties or encountering net problems, let's first dive into a really, really, really short, but hopefully kind of interesting icebreaker. So allow me to share my screen so that I can share to you a link for our icebreaker. Okie dokie. Are you able to see the screen in front of you? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. So you have here in front a QR code that would lead to a Padlet. And that Padlet is actually a map of the world. So what you're going to do would be to type or locate or input the location that you are in by clicking on this mini icon. Don't worry, I'll be simulating this one also in your screens. For those who are not able to access via the QR, I will also be providing a link to the board, so no worries. So you type in your location or drag the pin, and then once you locate your location, kindly briefly share a word or a phrase that describes how you perceive global volunteering based on your perspective or experience. So again, just a word, maybe one word, or you can have two words or more, but a phrase describing your how you perceive global volunteering or gender inequality in volunteering based on your experience and or perspective. So for those who are not able to access the QR code, I will be sharing the link in our chat so that you're able to also access it through your laptops or whatnot. So let me stop my let me stop screen sharing so that I can share the map of our icebreaker. Okie dokie. Oh, perfect. So I could see two locations already. Oh, three. That's nice. So this is very interesting because we will be having guest speakers from different corners of the world. And it would also be very interesting to know what their contexts are when it comes to global volunteering or gender inequality in volunteering. Oh, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Oh, 7. There's another one. And we're getting plenty. So starting from the Philippines. So I was the one who shared this. So a phrase that I would see or I would describe gender inequality and volunteering would be it needs more voice in our context. Then we also have one from Thailand. So equity. And then moving forward, we also have one from Kenya. Let's see here, diverse. And then we also have one in Togo. Much waterfalls. Interesting. And then let us go a bit north. We have one here in Paris. Huh, not yet. No word yet. No worries. Or maybe the word is Paris. Maybe. And then Budapest. We need to advocate for fairer opportunities. And then we also have 3 in Berlin. Oh, interesting. Is it 3 or 2? Oh, volunteering and gender equality are transformative for everyone. I like that one. And then we have the optimistic owl. Oh, and then where else? So I think you're also able to um, scan and read the contexts of the people who are sharing. Once again, if you just arrived in the Zoom, I am encouraging everybody to locate their location here. There's a small circle, violet thingy just at the lower right of your screen. You can click on that one. And then after clicking on that one, you can search for your location. After searching for your location, if you can find it, then you tell us a word or a short phrase that describes how you perceive global volunteering or gender inequality in volunteering is in your country, or based from your perspective or experience. And then if you're done typing a word, a phrase or two, then you can click publish, and then we'll see your answers popping in our map. So we already have 20 participants for this event. Thank you so much for coming here. So one of the reasons why we are having this kind of icebreaker activity is this is just a prelude to give other people a glimpse of what gender inequality or volunteering is in their local context or in their country or in their respective regions. Later on, our guest speakers will be elaborating more on their contexts when it comes to gender inequality and in global volunteering. But this is a cool way for us to assess our initial thoughts and understanding of gender inequality in global volunteering. And I guess, honey, am I still on track, or am I a bit uh, uh, late when it comes to the time?
We can move to the next session.
All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for the interesting input. You can still browse through this as the session goes on. And I hope once we finish this webinar or this dialogue or conversation, your perspectives might change, or your perspectives are reinforced based on the sharings of our guest speakers, and of course, your interaction with your fellow young people. So thank you so much for that wonderful icebreaker. Moving forward, I am now super excited to introduce our guest. But before that, we will stop our group photo because we might get so engrossed with our discussions later and we won't get to get photos anymore. So to those who are a bit comfortable turning on your cameras, we would love you to turn on your camera so that we can have this really short and cutesy photo for us to commemorate and to remember this occasion.
Thank you, Car.
Take it away.
Yeah, so Julieta, my colleague, and I will take picture, and you can smile. Give us your best smile. Thank you so much. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that one. Thank you, Julieta, and thank you, honey. Now for the main event, because I'm so curious to the discussions and I really want to participate in it. So allow me to introduce our guest speaker for our first guest speaker. She is an Afro-political feminist thought leader, researcher, and leadership development consultant who is deeply committed to creating safe and inclusive spaces where African women can lead, exist, thrive, and shape humanitarian action. She is an alumna of the Africa Women's Leadership Institute under the auspice of the Economic and Climate Justice by Akina Mamawa Africa, and holds a bachelor's degree in mechatronic engineering. Wow. She has led and designed young women-centered inclusion framework, some of which have featured in the Feminist Action for Climate Justice initiative by UN Women. She designed women inclusion tools for the Network of Africa Volunteer Organizations, a framework whose best practices and concrete strategies featured in the 2025 Africa Volunteer Summit. She is passionate about inclusion as a fundamental value, and her work continues to challenge both structural and cultural barriers that limit women's participation in decision making, extractive models of development, all while nurturing radical hope, collective care, and transformative policies. Everybody, give our hands together for Miss Brilliant Chepkirui from Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I hope everybody can hear me. And while I'm going to share my screen while I do that. I will not be doing any further introduction because I think it has been covered comprehensively. Welcome to our session today. It's really lovely to have you in this conversation. And I hope, usually when I have conversations with young people, I always say we are co-creating. We are doing this together. We're having a conversation, a dialogue rather, because my biggest philosophy of work is no particular person holds expertise or holds knowledge that they can say this is true and this isn't. We are all co-creators based on our experiences and based on our backgrounds and the lived realities that we carry in rooms. So welcome to this piece. I'm going to be speaking in the context of Africa region. Africa as a diverse, both a diverse and a very unique area, and especially when it comes to volunteering. My name is Brilliant, and I'm going to be taking it through this session. I hope you can see my screen, everybody. And I think one thing that I noted is we are quite familiar. I am really happy we have some of the really informed audience with us because a lot of us are familiar with some of these structured gender inequalities, gender equality or gender inequalities. So I don't believe this is something that is new entirely because we exist in communities that are often, these things do not exist in a vacuum. We exist in communities where these things happen, where these interactions are witnessed on a daily basis. And it's sort of shaped, or rather we are shaped by all these experiences. So I titled my presentation Gender Critical Consciousness because this is a clarion call to everybody and to just refocus your level of awareness, and not just awareness, but to kind of bring that together into action. So let's get into it. Why this session matters specifically and speaking to African volunteerism, and that is, I think when I say volunteerism is our heritage as African people, I speak for everybody because it is in our culture, it's embedded in our social fabric. And this isn't something that we are adopting or rather new to, and it has always been done for the survival of people. There's something, one of my favorite thought leaders, that is Wangari Maathai from Kenya. She says, that there comes a time when we are called to shift to a new level of consciousness, and that time is now. So we've had all these ages that we've lived in volunteerism, or rather, we've been doing work in communities. We've seen, women show up to one another, or men show up to one another's places when somebody needs help or somebody needs support. In African countries, we usually say, for example, that a child is a community, a child belongs to the community, where a child is brought up by the whole community, when a child is born, the people that are responsible for not even holding, but molding that child into somebody who is, a solid person in the society is the community, not the parents, not just the parents, but the whole community. So volunteerism, or rather volunteering is framed as a neutral issue, but I want to bring this in the whole aspect of this isn't something that is detached from every other of our realities. This is embedded in our daily lives. This is embedded in the work that we do, how we show up for our friends, how we show up to family. And just the same way there is inequalities in our daily lives that we witness on a daily basis, this replicates into volunteerism as well. So we're going to be addressing this in the sense of altruism, that is rather selflessly stepping up to support somebody either through obligation or because it's a responsibility without necessarily expecting anything in return. And then on the aspect of mutual aid as well, because this is something that we've always done as a community. We show up not just in monetary giving, but also just showing up to support one another. When one of us is, for example, mourning, or we have somebody that is faced with a challenge like they cannot take care of their family, for example, we step up and support them. And then reciprocity. How are these interactions shaped within society? What does it look like across genders? And some of the terms that I'm going to be using is gender diverse persons or gender marginalized persons, that is speaking to women, queer persons or LGBTQ persons, men as well. So welcome to this session. And before we get into that, I just want you to take a moment to think about the societies that you live in, that you exist in, and think about when, for example, you are invited to volunteer in a space or you are called to share expertise in a space, whose voices are usually centered, and think in the sense of men, think in the sense of women, think in the sense of older people, think in the sense of young people, think in the sense of even children, And, we've had cases of like sometimes people say, I was included only, for symbolic purposes because the proposal says that young people are going to be involved. So I was involved because it needed to look good on paper, And then who is considered an expert? Who are the experts in a room? Who shape knowledge? Whose knowledge is shared the most? And then who is expected to volunteer? Who defines volunteerism? Who says, okay, this passes as volunteering work that needs to be recognized? Or, for example, who shapes impact? Who defines impact? And then if you think there is enough representation in our voluntary spaces, and how do you know that, for example, when you look around, do you see the faces of people you would imagine dominate the volunteerism spaces? And when you look around, do you see the same voices making decisions in those rooms? Yes. So when we get into the next part of this presentation, I want you to carry these reflections in your mind, such that everything that we debunk or unpack following, just have this in mind so that you can as well just fill them in. So now looking at the African setting, what does volunteerism look like for us? What is volunteerism and what does it look like? So when it comes to volunteering, I think just to understand what that looks like in our context as African people, there is a community that I usually like to invoke the work that they do or how, tradition is shaped. That is a community in Sierra Leone, where in there traditionally they used to have chiefs who govern, or rather who are the smallest units of administrations in community. So the chief was considered, for example, not just the person where people go to, but when you lack food in your family, you would always go to the chief person to like see, um, I I lack this and this, and people would find ways to step up to fill that in, such that your children would not sleep hungry. Or if you needed support with building a home, for example, there's a very high chance that you're not gonna be doing that by yourself. You're gonna have men, young men showing up to, like put it up, do the smearing. You're gonna have women also show up to do the the welfare, And then how does this look like now? Gender disintegrated is such that patriarchy is a power, or rather power structure, power dynamic within this volunteerism that I think plays some of the biggest role. It is not the only power dynamic, but it is some of the biggest institutions that shape how we volunteer, especially within African context. So patriarchy posits that men are the providers. Like those are the sole providers, especially in our societies. We could say the man provides, and then women, the children, and sometimes even strangers are like given the parts where they do welfare. Such that if you're a man, see, and you visit another village, that is not your village, you know, you would be expected, you would be provided for. So that's why I say this is divided such that women have certain uh, roles that they play in society. Some of these have replicated, or rather have stemmed into trickle down into the kind of volunteering work that we do. Like now that we institutionalize volunteerism, how then do these show up in our workplaces or in our volunteering spaces? And then division of labor, certainly, when women were assigned to do welfare, most of this work is unpaid care. Who are the primary caregivers? Who are the people that get assigned to do work in nursing homes? Who are the people that you send to do work with children, for example? And that is work that women have been saddled with for the longest time. And then these, or rather, these norms, or rather, I don't want to call them stereotypes, but these practices fail to acknowledge the essential and labor-intensive contributions women make. Because when men say they are the providers, that is monetary. That is, they provide food, they bring food to the table, they bring whichever thing needs to keep the family going, and that is what is presented as, you know, actual labor. And then now that we came into the whole capitalism aspect of this, where women also work, but also men are still, low key being said to be the providers, caregiving remains undervalued. Look at how we talk about domestic work. Look at how we, for example, talk about community work, like showing up, or rather the work that gets done within the community that is not necessarily financial or monetary. And then when women are disproportionately burdened by unpaid labor, these same people who carry the most of volunteering work, because I would want to say, in as much as that work is really done out of obligation or needs to be acknowledged, it would still fall under voluntary work, because this is work that is still not being compensated. Yes. And then when it comes to who makes decisions, who says, okay, this is valid volunteering work, who makes the decisions on the table? When you look at the governing bodies of the volunteering work that we do, whose faces dominate those rooms? Is it the men? Is it the young people? Is it the women? And there is also the aspect of risk. There is risk when it comes to volunteering, because, for example, how women show up, or how a gender diverse person show up into volunteering spaces, is it the same way across all genders? Is it the same way youth or young people show up without feeling excluded, or do they have to worry about safety in hindsight? And just to take us through what power, privilege, and exclusion looks like for our African context as well. I want to recently. I honestly started running because I believe the healthcare system in my country is a bit, you know, flawed really very much. And I felt like I needed to do this for my health and also just to maybe allow myself to, you know, detox through a healthier way. And I was thinking to myself, every time I feel like I want to go outside or want to show up within spaces where people run, the first thing that I always worry about is safety. Am I going to be safe? Am I going to be feeling comfortable in spaces that I show up without having to look over my shoulder? You know, and just to take you through what gender normative stereotypes look like. How do we see women within our communities? And in an African context, traditionally, women, just looking at what traditionally look like into the colonial era that also shaped into the stereotypes that we held or traditionally held is cultural and societal expectations usually dictate who belongs in volunteering spaces, whose work gets to count. When women show up to care, women show up to serve, you said it in a space, but it's women who are expected to volunteer. We say, okay, you're supposed to be doing that work, but we're not going to acknowledge the work that you do. Or if men, for example, are doing the provision work, what metrics or to what level do we get to measure and say, okay, this is work that is visible enough to be featured in volunteering measurement frameworks? And then do when you look at how these people get to show up in volunteering spaces, we have stereotypes that do not give do not allow free existence of gender diverse persons. When you look at the harassment that trans people face, the harassment that intersex persons face, even not just from health to spaces that they would otherwise just want to exist. Some of these stereotypes really affect how they show up. So if somebody does not feel safe enough to show up in a space, do we get to say then that it is a structural thing, or it's structural inequality that stems from how we perceive these people? Because I feel like in Africa, women are still dehumanized such that even when they face harassment, they are still victim blamed. Most of the structures that we have in place as volunteerism organizations or institutions do not have follow-up mechanisms to say, oh, okay, we have this to keep you safe as a woman. We are, for example, sending you, or we would like to have you volunteer in a certain space. Have you created a space where women can feel safe? And look at how, for example, women that are saddled with caregiving, women who have young children, women who are breastfeeding, do they have spaces where they get to be women without the pressure of you have to deliver, you have to productively do the work? Are we creating safe spaces for these women? So looking at this, it doesn't just affect how people show up, but it also affects the psychological thing that it has to be taken into consideration. And then looking at how knowledge and expertise is shaped, because I feel like for most of the work that I've done, you sit in a room and you look around and ask yourself, because I know women hold, they hold the line literally in volunteerism. But then when you look at the policy making, when you look at the frameworks, the tools that are being designed to govern volunteerism, for example, it's mostly the men that are making those decisions. And then most of them are trickled down of Western frameworks. When colonialism happened and we had missionaries being sent to Africa, they said that these are the experts. These are people who we consider experts in doing work with communities. And we keep thinking of volunteerism as something that was brought to us rather than something that we've always had in our heritage. So then young African women, for example, when you look at African women, it is...
Sorry, just a kind reminder that we are already over time. So maybe, yeah, it's best to...
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. When you look at African women, does that cut across the 8 different ages, like older women and young women? How are these women affected, especially in how they show up to those volunteerism spaces? So just to wrap that up, what power, privilege, and exclusion looks like. Time poverty. When women have to spend so much of their time providing primary caregiving, they they do not get to show up as other people who show up in volunteerism. And then those are the statistics. And different inequalities are replicated in different demographics differently. You look at gender discrimination, there's also age-based exclusion. And then, with women that have, for example, up to menopausal age, lack of access to funding and leadership. And then we have harassment and safety risks in volunteering species. And finally, rural versus urban women or men that are in rural areas or urban areas, the disabled, for example, and able-bodied. So I invite you to look at this from my intersectional perspective, where all these identities overlap and also get to shape our volunteerism. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you on the next side of this, that is in the breakout rooms, to kind of build on this.
Thank you so much, Brilliant. Wow, that was super informative. So for those who will be part of her break group session, you're in it. You're gonna enjoy everything. So moving forward to our next speaker, she is the co-founder and director of Volunteer Spirit Association, or VSA Thailand, and she has been and she is a speaker and special lecturer from 2020 up until now, especially on topics on international voluntary service, youth empowerment, eco-life, sufficiency economy philosophy, or souls for life. She is also the national correspondent of ICYE Thailand from 2023 up until present, and is a UNESCO World Heritage Volunteer Partner from 2021 up until present. Everybody, put your hands together for Miss Jarinya Krittikan from Thailand. Miss Gate, you have 7 minutes to present your presentation. We look forward to hearing more.
Yes, sir, Cor. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I just say like Truman Show. Huh? Test. You hear my voice well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and very nice to meet you all. I'm start because it's short time, 7 minutes. Forgive me. You see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Volunteering is often described as a space for inclusion, but in reality, it can mirror the inequalities of our society, cultural, social, or economics. Have you ever wondered why, even in volunteering, a space that is supposed to be open and equal, some people still face more barriers than others? A young woman in rural Thailand once told me, I want to join international work camp, but my parents said it's not safe for girls to travel. This is just one example of how gender roles shape who gets to volunteer and who doesn't. So I'd like to share how we can rethink gender inequality in global volunteering, especially here in Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is the biggest region in the world. So across regions, let's get into some fact research in gender inequality shows both progress and persistent challenges. In Central Asia, equal rights are protected by law, but women still face gap in labor leadership and STEM opportunities. Kazakhstan leads and Uzbekistan show reform, but double burden of work and home remains. In East Asia, education achievements are strong, but women remain underrepresented in leadership and continue to face wage gaps. South Asia, patriarchal norms and gender-based violence limit opportunities. Girls lack in schooling. Women remain underrepresented in the workforce, and the digital divide is still significant. In ASEAN or Southeast Asia, my region has strong policy, but implementation is uneven. Women dominate informal jobs, and LGBTQ+ rights remain contested, especially in some pockets countries. Oceania, Pacific nation face low political representation. In Fiji, the country in the region with the highest percentage of women in national parliaments, only 16% of parliamentarian seats are held by women. while Australia has made notable progress. And the last region, Western Asia, discriminatory family laws and patriarchal attitudes still restrain women's education, work, and leadership. So in short, progress exists, but cultural norms, unequal resources, and limited leadership opportunity continue to reinforce equality. So the key reflection on gender in volunteering. Gender as role not always, in many communities, gender is still seen mainly through family or social roles. Think of 5 different figures. Each plays a role, but they're not always valued equally. Beyond inequality alone is not only about us, and to rethink how gender itself is defined and value is volunteering space. Promoting self-value and attitude, volunteering can nurture self-worth and confidence, helping participants see themselves as more than traditional. This is the slide that shows LGBT equality index. Traditionally, gender was seen in binary way, men and women, with fixed expectation, but consider gender diversity in social now, in the role, family roles, physically perspective, move beyond to old concept to promote self-value, inclusion, and equality for LGBT plus communities. LGBT equality index shows us which countries are more inclusive and also where progress is still needed. Okay, let's see the action, what we have been done and also doing now in volunteering. This is the Alliance for International Voluntary Service Bunch, a thematic initiative called Spin the Tea on Diversity. The focus is clear to bring gender equality and inclusivity into the heart of the international voluntary service. The idea is simple, just but powerful, to create safe, open spaces where volunteers can share honest experiences about diversity, equality, and discrimination, like building the team. This conversation aim to bring silences, challenge stereotypes, and inspiration action. Within international camps and projects, Stability on Diversity encourage us to look closely at daily life camp, how we eat, and work together as volunteers, ensuring safe space for all genders, including showers, toilet, and sleeping arrangements, and promoting respect and inclusion by value, identity, backgrounds, and personal space. Reminding ourselves, don't assume, don't dominate, and always be mindful of words. And most importantly, take care of ourselves as each other as we learn and grow together. This initiative turns the values of gender equality into practical action in our everyday volunteering. So, from equality to equity in volunteering, giving everyone the same opportunity is equality, same training, same process. But equality, giving the right support, you see the verb, to each other volunteer can truly participate, like scholarship, mentorship, inclusive policy. In volunteering, equality matters more because barriers are different for women, LGBTQIA+, and underprivileged youth. So to rethink gender inequality in global volunteering, we must go beyond equal chance and work toward equal table access and outcomes. Only then can volunteering become a true platform for inclusion, empowerment, and social transformation. So I come to the last slide. This is the question that we can discuss in the break room later after this. So you're really welcome to share in the chat or during the discussion. Volunteering can be powerful platform. This is what I believe, to promote gender equality, equity, and across the globe. And thank you very much. I hope I'm time.
Thank you so much, Gay. Thank you for sharing the very complex context also of the Asia Pacific region. And for those who will be with Gate in the breakout session, you'll have a lot to discuss about. Moving forward with our next speaker, she holds a degree in communication sciences and has extensive experience in Argentina's public and civil society sectors. For the past 18 years, she has led programs and projects focused on fostering youth participation and strengthening volunteerism. Most recently, she contributed to the review of the Safer Together ICYE policy and co developed the handbook Safer Together Our Policy in Action. Everyone, let's put our hands together for Mariela Ortiz Suarez from Argentina.
Wow, thanks for the presentation. I feel in the Oscar ceremony. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Core. It's a pleasure to stay with you. Thanks, the Youth Committee of CCIVS and the IEC. I love this initiative and I love you work together. Okay. Well, I will share with you some pictures about Latin American region. Of course, we will define some aspect because the region is very big and the diversity of communities is a lot. So, well, I will do my best. Please, Hani, could you move to the next one? Okay. Before starting, I would like to share a quick disclaimer about this presentation because it is important to understand that there isn't much research or literature that specifically looks at gender inequalities in international volunteers. So something that we have to take in account, and that is a very good start to understand that we need to work on to build knowledge and statistics about inequalities, gender inequalities, and international volunteering. Some in Latin American region, the landscape is worst because we don't have a common framework about volunteering, let alone international volunteering. So we need, as a region, to reclaim the category of IVS and shape it to reflect our own realities in gender inequalities. On the other side, I should note that the sources I have drawn on reflect gender are in strictly binary terms, which unfortunately leaves out LGBTQ plus identities. That is something that we have to take note also, because all the statistics and global figures take in account only binary genders. Finally, the proposal I bring you is to connect some regional statistics and insights and across it with international volunteer. By doing that, we can ask better questions and shape clearer, stronger way forward together. Thanks. There is the next one. Well, a snapshot of the reality of the volunteer sector in the region. Although there is no data available on international volunteer, the region is very strong in this area, in global volunteering. In terms of volunteer mobilization, it ranks second in importance worldwide, and in terms of gender distribution, the proportion of women is higher than men. Okay, Hani, you go faster than me. No, it's okay. The next one, the SDG. Yes, thanks. Another thing that is important is that the last report of UNB shows us that volunteering in all its categories contribute to the to SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 5, that it means gender equality. But what happens with IBS? Well, we don't know if we are contributing highly to this SDG, but some good news for you is that last year we carried out a research about how is functioning the international volunteering in Argentina, and SDG 5 was the second selected, in the second place selected, followed by SDG 10, that is reducing inequalities, and 4, quality education. So perhaps we are not so far away for the global SDG rank, let's say. Okay, next, please. Well, to analyze a little about what is happening in our region, I choose 3 entries. Of course, I listened the presentations for my colleagues, and of course, we are in the same path, because gender role, care work, all of these are really the main issues that we have to take in account. Gender role, for example, in the idea to make more effort to get more women to apply to roles that are more commonly male dominated, and vice versa. Care work, meaning that we have to do effort to support women of our projects, and gender violence as one that is we are working on to prevent and avoid gender-based violence in our environment. These issues are the priority issues of the feminist agenda in the region, but my feeling is that there are issues that are very close, that are inside our environment and our sector. Sorry, I have to plug it. Please leave me a moment. Thanks, sorry. Okay, Hani, could you put the next one? Thanks. Okay, gender role. Gender role, it describes the socially construct expectations of what men and women are supposed to do. In this case, the chart shows the productive sectors where women are more involved. And you see that it is not a surprise that health, social work, and education are the main sector that employ women. On the other hand, there is a household survey led by ILO, International Labor Organization, that in 70 countries in Latin America indicate that female managers and business owners represented a relatively stable share of 3 to 5% of the labor force. So that are figures that really are shocking. Also, the UNB report published in 2021 and the inequalities in the task that women volunteers and men volunteers do, and reflect the same analysis about the gender, about these gender task assignments. So some guiding questions in our environment are that if we are reproducing or reinforcing these stereotype models, and if it's possible to address this aspect when we refer volunteers to our project. Perhaps this question could be better work in our breakout rooms. Please, next, Hani. Thanks. Okay, care work time. That is another very significant significant figures to analyze. In Latin America, women carry out around 76% of all unpaid care work at home. Well, this chart measures the gap in hours dedicated to care work between men and women. And if we took the extremes, for example, in Brazil, men spend just over an hour a day on care work, while women spend nearly 3. But the gap is even wider in Mexico, because men spend about 3 hours and women spend almost 7 hours in care work. Some guiding question here, if we can think our project at the regional level that promote care and support women in our communities, or if we can think different ways to help to narrow these gaps. Next one, please. Okay, gender violence, that is something that we have started to work. There is, well, you know that the extreme violence against women means femicide, and we have different conversations about it inside ICYE. We are we have started work, but I would like to share with you some figures because, for example, something that was research from CEPAL. CEPAL, I don't know if you know, is the Economic Latin, I think in English is Economic Latin American and Caribbean Commission, and they found that there are 25 countries with the highest numbers of femicide, and 14 of these countries are in Latin America. And another report shows that in 2021, at least 4,473 women die in femicide. So that is something to take in account. You know that femicide is the most yes, it's extreme violence, but behind that there are many different violence that we need to work on it. From our side, in ICYE, we work in a policy and measures to prevent and avoid gender-based violence, especially sexual violence. And for example, we started to report that, and we can share with you that in the program year from 2022, 2023, and 2024 to 2025, there were 19 cases of sexual violence reported that happened in our region. So what we did these last years, well, we started with something with some task or some work. We built our policy Safer Together to address the sexual violence in international volunteer. We made also a handbook about how you could address the sexual violence in your organization and in your community. We did regional trainings. We made a referral route for cases. We have a subcommittee created, and of course, this issue is being measured and gather information from the different organizations in our global report and volunteer service. So, well, that's some things that we did, and of course, I'm very pleasant to continue the conversation in our breakout room. So, thanks.
Thank you so much, Mariela. So to those who will be part of Mariela's breakout session later on, you will also be having very interesting conversations. Now, we will be opening the floor for a Q&A, but we'll just be limiting questions to only 2 questions because anyway, you're gonna meet together in the breakout session, so you can ask a lot of questions by then. But as of the moment, we're opening the floor to 2 questions. Anybody have any questions for our guest speakers before we all break into our respective groups? If you're too shy to turn on your mic, you may add your questions in our chat box. But for those who feel a bit confident right now, you may turn on your microphone or raise your hand or just inform us if you have questions. Oh, I think they understood well. And I think they are looking forward to the conversations. Okay. Here you are. Hi, Anya. A pleasant day there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Brilliant, Gate and Mariela, for very interesting contributions and presentations. I would very much like to ask how you think in IVS we need to address sort of new forms of masculinities, because we know that a lot of volunteers are female. So I wonder how we can engage men more in international volunteering, and how we can use IVS to discuss and to transform toxic masculinities as one part of the patriarchal system. Naturally, it's only one part, but I think it's very important to not only have the discussion with women, but to really embrace feminist men and give them the opportunity to contribute to the discussion. So I was wondering how your experiences with volunteers, but also how can we choose different kinds of host projects, or how can we engage men in these discussions in our volunteering program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Anya. Mariela, Brilliant, and Gate, would any one of you want to answer first?
I can go.
Okay.
Thank you, Anya. Not easy question, because we need to know why the man doesn't interesting much. But the last point that you said, how to choose the project to engage more, then this is something that we can think about, because like maybe most of the project is interesting more in the women. Education, teaching more in the women. So we need to study something that what is a project that's the men's interesting, and also other genders also interesting. For example, like in the environmental or not, or culture. or archaeology or agriculture. And we need to think back to our organization that we have enough local host project to serve them or not. This is the one. And also the strategies of men and women in the world is different. The women is more. So this is another factor. So we need to do some of the research. Why the women engage more in the IPS, the National Politics Service, than the men? Maybe one of the factors is the project. Then so to find the interesting project for them. Yeah, this is one point that you know.
Thank you for that one, Gate. Mariela?
Yes, may I perhaps add something? Of course, there is a very difficult question, and I ask myself this question all time. So I think that something I can read for my context and in my work with young people is that at least in this part of the world, feminist movements are very strong, and that is very good because we have more policies and more rights because of the work that feminist movements made. But the other side of that is many young male start feel fear about women, and sometimes in a very open spaces some kind of a statement that are very strong perhaps make them give a step aside of the conversations because they don't think that they are capable to discuss, because they need, of course, work more on themselves, and that is a very deep and internal work, and sometimes the contexts are go faster than the work that they need to understand. So I think that perhaps for me, it's better sometimes to give this kind of conversation more in small spaces, or try to make give the word and try to. I think that we have a very important role in the mediation of this discussion. We have we must have a very let's say, a key role in order to not take position, despite we think in some way, and we think that it's necessary to make we have all the flags of feminism, at least in my case, but we work with young people. We need to be more measured and try to listen and try to make more questions than a statement, than things that are already thought, that perhaps this makes that men feel uncomfortable and yes, and leave the conversation. And we are, I think that is generally in all the world, we are facing right movements, and right movements increase the patriarchal values. So for us, it's very important to invite men to be part of our spaces by trying to listen and trying to support them to do this internal path to understand this inequality and the values of the patriarchal system that all of us were born.
Thank you so much for that, Mariela. Brilliant. You want to also share your thoughts?
Yes, just so I don't repeat what my colleagues have spoken about, I want to bring these in the sense of what solidarity and empathy may look like, especially when approaching, these conversations within the spaces that we work in, that the work that these different genders do is complementary rather than, competitive, like who is capable of doing this or who is capable in doing this. So whenever we're in our voluntary spaces, we need to make sure that we are not, we are not replicating like the gender roles, for example. If you're sat in a room, are you expecting the women in the room to get up and go get get food for everybody, for example? And then even when you assign roles or when you assign projects, make sure you put the participants, for example. If you're referring somebody for a voluntary role, for example, you have to nuance culture. Do these people where these people are volunteering, what is the culture like? And I think education and literacy really goes a long way, because at the fundamental, rather the fundamental value is we do this for collective survival. So when everybody takes it as a responsibility, we have to ingrain the idea that you are volunteering to do this as a responsibility for the good of everybody else, rather than you're not doing it for the other person. You're doing it because we all need to survive in times of, say, for example, climate collapse, in times of crisis, in times of conflicts, or when people are in need. So just having that innate desire, encourage the men, or the women to have an innate desire to like be able to do this. If a man, for example, is stepping in to support with care work, it is because they humanize the other person enough to know that they need support and they need care, and that empathy goes a long way as a value as well in the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Brilliant. So that was it. Due to time constraints, we'll be proceeding with our breakout sessions, but no worries. You'll have all the time that you need to converse with each other, and of course with our facilitators, and of course our guest speakers. So Hani will be dividing all of us into breakout session groups, and we
Yes.
have 15 minutes to do our breakout sessions. I'm giving the floor now to Hani.
Okay, thank you so much. I will start the breakout session.
Smiling. I think they have had really interesting conversations. So at this point, I'll be inviting our facilitators or youth FACIs to share the discussion, the summary of discussions in each breakout groups. I'd like to start first with Dalia. Dalia, I'm giving the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we had some really interesting discussions talking about the volunteerism in the African context. And when it comes to gender inequalities, we talked about how important it is to implement frameworks that look out for women's safety and to really recognize, ask the question, do women feel comfortable in these volunteerism spaces, and to take it into account what their answer is, not just put women in a room because you need the statistics for the funding or for whatever reason, and not actually listen to needs. We talked about programs that would be interesting to implement, most notably by creating appropriate spaces to ensure that women, or I mean, it applies to all people, that everyone has a space in volunteerism where their needs are met. For example, a need that we spoke about was pregnancy and maternity. For example, there needs to be policies implemented that protect women when they go on maternity leave, when they have babies, because it can happen a lot of the time. Brilliant was explaining that women can be let go, that their space is not kept, or they are not given the space, for example, for breastfeeding, or all of these needs that are super important during pregnancy. And these are also the things that keep the wheel turning. And lastly, we talked briefly, about the distribution of roles and how important it is not to just give the caregiving roles to female volunteers, or to give traditionally female roles to female volunteers, because this obviously creates a blockage. Maybe it's not listening to what the women want to what they want to do necessarily, and instead try to distribute equal men and women in these caregiving roles and give women more decision-making power, not just have them sitting in the room because to be there. And lastly, one thing to acknowledge is that a lot of women still, because of patriarchal structures, don't have the same mobility as men and are not necessarily allowed by their community, by their family, etc., to cross the border. So it would be interesting to see some programs implemented that would provide this independence to leave the country, to go somewhere without the supervision of a partner or of a family member or something like that. This is also a boundary that is not really discussed, but that is also a real barrier for female volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalia. Wow, what a really interesting conversation. Moving forward to Gates breakout room, allow me to call in Camille. I'm giving the floor to you.
Hi. So I have the feeling that we were just starting the conversation because we were just popping up with many things, and then we had to, come back here, but we have the time. So we were talking about religion and patriarchy have the huge impact, and also our system on how roles are divided and how people behave in the international volunteer. Also, we have some terms in political law that suffer somehow of prejudice because they are just they don't make visible gender issues that people are facing. And so we can also invite people, and especially men, to ask them what they would like to do, what they would like to play on these environments, to just make them try to reflect about it. Yeah. So also about we can choose the way we would like to live, not considering only the gender, but I mean with the way we dress, the way we behave, how we talk, and that all kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that was it. If somebody wants to compliment me, we were in the middle of a story from Julia when we had to come back, but yeah, if you would like to share, it was really a nice sharings in the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cami. Last but not the least, I'd like to call in from our breakout session, Nico, who was with us together with Mariela.
So I had the same feeling as Cami, but even though we have some interesting conversations, starting from the point that is being a social organization is not just be part of the SDG agenda, but also know how to work with diversity, that was mentioned by Mariela. Also, because the idea is have better programs with human quality. That was an important thing to highlight. Then we go with the first question, that was, what is the biggest challenge that maybe in our region we are facing with gender inequalities? and we started talking about gender violence, and it led the conversation to digital violence. As we are living now in a digital life, our work, or social life, or family life is in our telephones, in our computers. Of course, violence is also in this platform. And how in IVS we can manage this. We also mentioned that maybe in our national organizations, we have the fear of how to face these things. And as Mariela mentioned, technology is going so fast that then the processes that we have to create to deal with this kind of problems go slower. But how to face these things? And also it was mentioned that maybe we need a systematic work that makes things happen faster, trying to following the new ways of violence that are happening in our environment, in this case in global volunteering. And finally, we also noticed that in the conversation there was just women, and we were wondering, okay, but how to have this kind of conversation, and also related with the conversation that Annie has started, how to start to have this conversation with men, how to find these spaces where we can talk with also them about this. And also if someone else would like to complement this summary, but I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you, everybody. And that actually marks the end of our conversation. Woo! How was it? Was it fun? Was it very interesting? Well, this is just the first stuff that we're going to do. We might be having more in the near future. And I would like to thank everybody for your participation, for being here, for rendering your time, for sharing your thoughts. We really, really, really appreciate it so much. To our guest speakers also, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your knowledge, and for giving us information that would help us traverse in this complex thing called life. And also thank you for my fellow youth engagement committees and young people from the CCIVS and ICYE. Without you guys, nothing will be happening here. So Hani is sharing a survey form below for us to know how it went, how we can improve more, because we really wanted to continue this kind of conversation, to have this kind of platform for young people. So once again, don't forget to fill in our survey link down below. It's in our chat. And thank you so much. This is again Karina, and I hope you have a good day, evening, afternoon. Goodbye, and see you soon.
Thank you very much, everyone. And also on behalf of Dalia, I'm so sorry that she had to leave.
Thank you so much.
early.
Thank you, everyone. It was amazing. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
See you.
See you.
Please help us to fill in the survey to improve. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Fanny.
Good job, everybody.